Right now, we have Patrick McNulty with us today. Thank you for joining us, Patrick.
Thanks, Gabby. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so please just tell us who you are and what your company does.
Yeah, sure. So I'm the head of sales and marketing for Apptentive. We are a software provider of analytics and feedback inside of apps. So think of your
Okay.
favorite app you may have on your phone, be it Starbucks, Dunkin', McDonald's,
Mhm.
travel, hospitality, a whole slew of companies. We actually help those large brands capture emotion and sentiment from their consumers.
Okay, so does that go with like the logo you have on the jacket as far as the
It
emotion and
it
sentiment?
does. Yeah, so this is both a heart and an A. I was not the
Oh,
designer of this many years
okay.
ago, but yeah, thank you.
Yeah, it goes perfectly. I'm sure people would definitely pair that together. So it's a great little logo, whoever did make that.
Thank you, Gabby. Yeah.
Yeah, so please, how did you get into that? What is the story of how you're with that company now?
Sure. So my background is interesting. I started out of school, actually even an internship in when I went to college at an agency. So I've always been fascinated by marketing,
Mhm.
advertising, and specifically I started off selling and kind of being the subject matter expert
Mhm.
for the Yellow Pages at the time. It was still a thing, and they were rapidly transitioning into digital. So I got to put my hands on a lot of different products from search marketing to SEO, video, a whole slew of different advertising products
Mhm.
from the sales and marketing side of it. I then kind of quickly moved into more of the analytics side with some speech analytics and text analytics companies. And so I ended up here as a kind of a natural transition for um, there's a lot of companies right now in the feedback and survey space.
Right.
Probably some
Mhm.
big names you're probably familiar with, consumer brands like SurveyMonkey, other really large
Mhm.
monoliths like Qualtrics or Medallia.
Okay.
So we compete directly with those groups. Our angle is quite a bit different though, and kind of what really piqued my interest the most
Mhm.
is that most of the survey, Gabby, you give to a large brand
Mhm.
goes off into the ether. People
Right.
don't usually answer it. You kind of say, okay, I'm going to submit this feedback form. Hopefully somebody grabs it. Maybe
Mhm.
they'll get to a customer service rep. Maybe it won't. I'm going to submit this app store review. I'm going to leave a whatever, right? Like it kind of just
Mhm.
goes poof. Apptentive's vision is really a voice for every customer.
Okay.
And that means capturing that feedback at the right time with the right question, not interrupting your brand experience,
Mm.
and then operationalizing that feedback, giving it to the right people so they can do something with it. Right. And
Okay.
that's really the big piece is making sure your voice is heard. And so much of the time, Gab, you know, I'm kind of, projecting here, most consumers don't feel acknowledged. I don't know. Think
Right.
about the last consumer experience you had and you gave some
Mhm.
feedback or you had an okay experience, but the brand never acknowledged you as a consumer, as a human.
Mhm.
You're lacking that two-way communication. That's really where we come in for brands and help them facilitate that.
Okay, and is the companies, do you think that gap is there because they don't have the time to address and actually talk to consumers, or that they don't care, or maybe it's a combination? Where do you think that is?
I think it's scary. You know, there's an adage, it kind of stems from call centers. Most of these
Hmm.
brands know that a call costs them about $8 or $10 per phone call.
Well, okay.
And so they view feedback and customer care as expensive. And
Hmm.
so they think, wow, I can't talk to all my customers. I just want to survey like 0.5% every so often. And I'm going to send them an email and ask them a question on a scale of 1 to 10. How likely are you to refer my product to a family or service?
Right.
Like, and you're like, a consumer's like, I don't know what's a 6 versus an 8. I don't know the
Right.
difference. And so there's this entrenched thinking of statistics. I can sample a population as
Hmm.
well as man, talking to customers seems expensive. So
Right.
we're really kind of trying to shift that paradigm, and we think about talking to the silent majority of customers.
Hmm.
Consumers are out there having experiences hundreds, thousands times a day, but largely they're not giving brands feedback about that experience. And brands are really lacking out because there is so much more to a consumer than their wallet, than their
Hmm.
credit card, right?
Hmm.
And so that's what we're really trying to unpack is all these old paradigms of saying, man, I don't want to talk to customers. It's too hard. It's too expensive. I don't have the right technology, et cetera, et cetera.
Right. And that's when you all come in.
That's
So,
exactly right. That's when we help out.
and it sounds like a great gap that you filled. And so, how do you create fresh opportunities to best serve your customers and your clients?
Yeah, so we try to listen really. We try to live our own principles
Of course.
by collecting feedback from our brands that we
Hmm.
serve. So we work with a couple hundred brands. Um, usually these are large consumer brands. If I'm a small B2B business and I've
Hmm.
only got a couple hundred customers, I don't really have this problem because it's
Okay.
a scale problem. If I've got 500,000 consumers, 10 million consumers, whatever it is, right? I
Hmm.
have a huge scale problem. So when we think about creating those fresh opportunities and solving new problems and iterating, because Apptentive has been around for about 10 years, I've been here for almost 3. So
Okay.
we think about having customer advisory boards. We actually just launched a fresh new program. So it's a kind of a two-part thing. Every new customer that onboards 90 days in, they get a call from my CEO. So I facilitate through my sales team a meeting of their executive sponsor at that team with my CEO, and they have a kickoff call to understand their onboarding, their pains, the solutions we're providing. That then transitions into an executive sponsor program.
Hmm.
So myself or a member of our leadership team actually try to meet every quarter for at least 30 minutes
Wow.
with both the champion and or the executive sponsor at the brand to
Okay.
ensure, again, so we're collecting feedback from customer advisory boards. We're sending them surveys. We're talking to our customers all the time. And we have these executive connections because a huge component of what we do,
Hmm.
listening to feedback from those brands, trying to iterate that into our services or into our product itself. So it's a big thing, and it's pretty fresh because I don't know a lot of brands that take the time to say, I want my head of success, my head of engineering, my VP sales, my
To
CEO,
really,
my head of product.
right, sit together.
Yeah,
Hmm.
we're going to each take 5 customers, and
Hmm.
we're going to just be that executive sponsor for these 5 brands.
Hmm.
Every month, we all then get together to talk about our experiences
Exactly. Hmm.
to make sure that we're okay. We've got this quantitative data that we're collecting in our product, like the behaviors, what they're doing,
Hmm.
clicking, but then we've also got this qualitative that we can layer over top of it to let's validate what we're seeing
Wow. Okay.
directly from, directly from the mouth of our brand.
Hmm. Hmm. And rather than one person or couple people trying to analyze everything, you're literally taking the experts in each area and say, okay, let's analyze this together so we can actually give all our expertise and have a conversation.
That's right. Yep, that's what we're trying to do.
Okay. And so if you just walk me through what is the process like if there's a company, like you said, a scale company that wants to work with you all, how does that work? How is that set up in the process?
Yeah, so we get a lot of so we have certainly a very small, when I think about the sales and like go to market aspect of our business,
Hmm.
we have a pretty small target list of companies that we want to go after.
Okay.
Some of the largest media companies, largest travel brands, which has been a little suppressed this year with COVID, obviously.
Hmm. Hmm.
Some of the verticals are thriving and actually
Okay.
starting to see big changes. So how that works is we usually have a pretty prolonged sales process because of the scoping aspect. So much of what we do, I work with multiple different people, from product managers to marketing managers to CX leaders to operations people. Like I think about if I'm trying to go after Burger King and
Hmm.
solve their problems, I actually am interfacing with 5 or 6 different departments to try to collect a bunch of their needs. Because you
Okay.
think about, I'm a Burger King customer, I'm going to order online and then pick up in store at curbside pickup. I've now just crossed from product in the app to marketing to
Wow.
probably customer success to probably operations and store management. In
Mm.
that one consumer experience, I'm interfacing with all of that brand.
Mm.
So we actually really heavily what we call multi-thread in sales terms, which is like, going and talking to all these different groups to collect their needs,
Mm.
scope that into the process. And then from out there, the deployment is it's actually really straightforward. It takes less than a day to get our
Wow.
product inside of a brand's app, but
Okay.
it's so much of the needs analysis and scoping requirement that we're
Mm.
really careful about planning out how we go help the brand solve those challenges, because every brand is unique and they all have very nuanced challenges. So we want to make sure we get it right to begin with.
Right. And you just mentioned how like consumers can go across just different faces, interfaces. Are consumers even aware of their impact and really like what they're doing with businesses? Do we even really know, or is it more just the business side knows?
You know, I'm of the mindset that the consumer shouldn't need to know. It should
Okay.
be as seamless as possible. And
Hmm.
that's a great pipe dream, and everybody talks it. It is very hard to do and
Hmm.
operationalize.
Hmm.
I empathize with all the brands we work with because not only on top of consumers crossing multiple channels are these old siloed politics that they have to go fight
Right.
to say who owns this part of the consumer and when and why. And we're
Mm.
starting to see a lot more of people putting on the CX hat, consumer experience hat, to say
Okay.
everybody owns CX at this company. And
Mm.
the really good brands, the ones that do it best, are getting out of the old politics of, we see a lot still of sales versus marketing
Hmm.
and or product versus marketing. at these companies. And what we're really trying to say is like, man, especially in a mobile world where consumers have their devices and they're doing multi-channel shopping experiences, product and marketing and operations and product all need to work together. Like,
Hmm.
because you all are fighting each other right now, and
Right.
consumers are suffering, right? So, yeah, it's certainly challenging. I empathize with them, but it's a really big boulder to move up this hill. Is
Right.
seamlessly creating this customer experiences for these brands is not easy.
Absolutely. And so, how do you continue to leverage the flexibility of, like you said, kind of being that middleman, being the app, helping these companies? How do you leverage flexibility to think outside the box?
Flexibility to think outside the box. Um, that's a good one. So much of a lot of what we do again is difficult because we are collecting feedback from consumers, giving it to the brand themselves. The brand still has to they still have to do the work.
Hmm.
They still have to create the new feature to do a buy online, pick up in store. If I'm Kohl's, I have to be able to facilitate buying on a website, maybe getting an order confirmation via text, picking it up and logging in the app, and then my back end inventory has to deliver that to the car in the parking lot at the right space. Like, whoa, operationally, it's incredible when these brands get it right. And
Right.
you see the feedback from consumers is glowing, and that you just earned a lifetime customer if you've got it. So kind of iterating and creating those experiences for us is really what we help to do, is illuminate um, both, I'd say, points of delight and points of friction. And for
Okay.
Apptentive, it's actually really simple. We actually ask a very simple question called the love dialogue.
Hmm.
And you may have interacted with it, Gabby. It's called,
Okay.
in an app, if you see a question that says, do you love X brand or Y experience or this app?
Okay.
Yes or no?
Hmm.
Just the yes or no, the binary response of yes or no. We actually find that elicits somebody's emotional response.
Hmm.
If they've just gone through a moment of truth of like a purchase or an experience, we pop that question, and then we can plinko them into two buckets. We call them a fan or a risk. If somebody says, yeah, I love that experience, or I love your brand, great, you're a fan. Let's put those people into a bucket and maybe ask them a different question than somebody said, no, I didn't love that, I had a bad experience, right? You
Got
would
it.
treat those incredibly differently in person. So
Hmm.
why not in the app, and why not with technology? So what we do is we help to segment those people, create cohorts and audiences based on their emotional state. And then we surface those insights back to the brand to say, you know what? That person just spent 15 minutes in the curbside pickup line waiting for their food.
Right.
You better do something about it,
Hmm.
right? Or this person had a fantastic experience. If I'm a retailer, target your marketing. So instead of just blasting people with email marketing that's not relevant, you've got a person who said they love this specific experience and there's their product. Let's send them very targeted and personalized messages,
Right.
right? So we
Exactly.
think about helping them operationalize this. We
Yeah.
can't do it for them, but we help surface that insight and bubble it up.
Right, and to just make them aware of the difference and what how to go about it. And so, small little question, what do you think is the difference in, like you said, that emotional pull for customers when you say love versus like, or just asking how was your experience? I just feel like that love has just a little bit more pull. What do you
It
think?
it has a little punch to it. It
Yeah.
doesn't work as well in some cultures. There are some
Mhm.
cultures
Of
that the
course.
word love doesn't translate, or it's too
Mhm.
much. Some brands aren't really all about using love. They use like. We've seen worse results than when they don't use love. So when you use
Mm.
love, it's an emotional trigger word. It's a stop
Right.
word to say somebody
Mhm.
like, "Wow, you either love it or you don't." And the thing about that's curious, so you've probably seen an NPS. It's a scale of 1 to 10. You've
Mhm.
probably seen a Likert scale on a scale of 1 to 5.
Mhm.
You may even seen like yes, maybe, no, scale of 1 to 3. All those scales, I can ride the fence, as in I can answer straight down the middle.
Middle. Mm.
But the
Mhm.
purpose of giving somebody an emotional trigger word of love and then making them select either or is
Mhm.
that I'm actually forcing them to reveal their emotion. And I can't sit the fence because the whole point of this question, the whole point of a survey is to ask another question.
Mm.
If there's a follow up question, if I answer a 3 on a scale of 1 to 5, what do I do with that information as a brand? That person's straight down the middle. I don't
Right.
know. I've no, but if they answer a 1 and a 5, wow, I have very discrete actions I can take. So we just force all that junk out and say, you know what? It's yes or no. Boom.
Yeah.
And then we plinko those people out. And it's actually, I'm glad you picked up on that because that's really where we start everything.
Yeah, because I know for me, like for someone who wants to, have a business, and then for our listeners, I'm just thinking like that's something a lot of businesses should incorporate. Don't leave it to be people in the middle, be neutral, be discreet. It's like yes or no. Do you love it? Do you love it or do you not?
That's right. And I'll take it a step further. I won't go too into the details, but
Hmm.
you'll get what I'm saying. If I now do the same question and I can identify Gabby, I can identify you with
Hmm.
your user ID. Obviously, you'll be anonymous and it'll be encrypted, and
Hmm.
HIPAA laws and CCPA, California, and privacy and everything. If I can identify it and tie it to a customer ID, if I ask that same question over time,
Hmm.
it's the most intriguing thing is actually how the consumer answers it. And if they have shifted from being what we call a
Hmm.
fan to a risk, that's the most compelling event
Yeah.
because we're working with financial institutions now. The point of no return for a bank is if I pull my checking account, if I pull my direct deposit from my employer or my check to my checking account,
Hmm.
that bank knows they have lost that customer, but
Right.
it's too late. But imagine if 3, 4 months prior, I had actually assessed that, wow, this customer loved me at once. I asked this love dialogue again. They said no.
Right.
Holy cow. This customer is at risk of churning from my
Mm.
business. I need to do something to save them before they disconnect their direct deposit and then they churn and I lose them altogether.
Right. You catch it
Right.
ahead
So
of time by paying attention to that data.
that's exactly
Wow.
what we're trying
Hmm.
to surface for these brands to say we can be way smarter about this and we can have much better experiences and predict what consumers are going to do ahead of time.
Wonderful. And so, for any of the listeners who want more information about Apptentive and about yourself, where are the best places to go?
I'd say our website. I'm super happy. Marketing reports up to me, and I love our marketing team. We have a really amazing site, ton of
Mhm.
knowledge, ton of information. So much of what we do, again, putting on my marketing hat from a business perspective, we are super fortunate. I was super fortunate that we've had an amazing content strategy for the past 10
Mhm.
years. We churn out articles, benchmark reports, how-tos, guides. We give a ton of information. We kind of have the Pareto rule, 80-20. Let's give 80% of our information away
Okay.
and
Hmm.
keep the 20 behind the doors.
Right.
We have to buy it. So you can go to our site, go to our blog. There is so much good information. And I'd say start there because I know most people now don't want to talk to sales reps. You just want to go learn. And if you're interested, there's a breadcrumb trail. You'll find us.
Perfect. And what is the name of that website, just for our listeners to know where to
It's
go?
Yep, it's Apptentive. So AppTentive.com. Apptentive.
Wonderful. Patrick McNulty, thank you so much for your time and sharing all that today.
Absolutely, Gabby. Thank you so much for having me.